Today, I want to hit on a little knowledge nugget of what fluid to use in your E46 or E9X power steering system. If you have been around BMWs for a while, maybe a DIY kind of person, you probably recognize that some of these BMWs on the cap call for CHF11S, some of them call for an ATF, and sometimes even the same model like an E46 sometimes calls for ATF or CHF11S, and which is appropriate. If this is a street application, I recommend you stick with what the cap calls for, but it does get a little bit trickier if it is a track or race application. The short version is that CHF11S doesn't offer the same level of protection that you can see in track use environments, whereas something like a Redline D4 ATF has a much higher level of protection. The longer version is that a number of years ago, we had a rash of power steering pump failures, specifically on E9X M3 cars, where they were using these big, wide, sticky tires and just abusing the power steering system, just putting a ton of heat into the system and destroying those power steering pumps. As we dug in with Redline, they were able to point out a few things with the CHF11S. Most notably was a thinner fluid, which is great for a cold weather climate, but also it has a lower boiling or flash point. That meant that as the fluid got hot, it would start to cavitate, which means that you're mixing air in with the oil, and if you have air going into your power steering system, your pump isn't going to last very long. So what they recommend? They said to try out D4 ATF because that has a much higher level of protection and a much higher boiling point, almost 150 degrees Fahrenheit higher at 440 degrees, which would allow the system to absorb some of that heat, not break down when it gets so hot, and keep that power steering pump lubricated and operating correctly. The next step was to actually try this, and we put it in a few cars that we specifically targeted that were having pump failures consistently. I'm talking once every other weekend or even every weekend. They were going through these things with CHF11S. Got D4 ATF in the system, and voila, magic. The system's held up. The D4 provided a much greater level of protection, and we're able to get massive amounts more life out of the power steering system. Awesome. You get better protection, better longevity when using Redline D4 ATF over CHF11S, but I thought those two fluids weren't compatible. Well, turns out in this scenario with E46 and E9X applications, they can be used interchangeably, but you don't want to mix the two. If you have a system that already has CHF11S in it, don't top it off with ATF, but if you do a complete flush and then refill it with the ATF, you're all good and everything will work as intended. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions on this topic or any other topic for your BMW, reach out to us, give us a call, hit us up on live chat, send us an email. We're here to help to guide you on a path with your BMW. You ready to go?
Should be an awesome race weekend.
We are ready to kill it this year.
It's good.
It's going to be a wild ride.